On behalf of the soldiers, civilians, and families of the U.S. Army Intelligence Center of Excellence, welcome to the 2019 Military Intelligence Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Now, the purpose of this event today is to induct our 5 new honorees. And we've been doing this here at Fort Huachuca for the last 31 years. To date, we have inducted 265 very deserving individuals, and you heard many of them are represented today.
It is my distinct honor now to induct 5 new members into the MI Hall of Fame.
Colonel James A. Bartlett, U.S. Army, retired. Following graduation from the University of Texas and Officer Candidate School, James Bartlett was commissioned as Second Lieutenant in Army Intelligence. He served 2 combat tours in Vietnam. As Aerial Reconnaissance Officer of the 1st MI Battalion, he developed a targeting program to facilitate timely provision of information to commanders. On a second tour, he served with the Military Assistance Command Province Advisory Team, responsible for province and district intelligence operations. The Province Intelligence Program was designated the model for MACV. Between Vietnam tours, he was an instructor with the Intelligence School. Colonel Bartlett commanded the 504th Military Intelligence Detachment with the 4th Armored Division in Germany, providing intelligence support to the division and subordinate elements. He was assigned to the 66th MI Brigade, where he played a key role in major reorganization initiative and led a source control branch that managed intelligence sources throughout the theater.
We welcome Colonel Bartlett into the MI Hall of Fame with the presentation of his certificate.
Colonel Daniel T. Maurice, U.S. Army, retired. Colonel Daniel Maurice began his military career as an enlisted infantryman and was commissioned through Officer Candidate School in 1971. His earliest intelligence assignments included S2, 1st of the 48th Infantry, and commander of the 856th ASA Company, 3rd Armored Division in Germany. From 1979 to 1982, he was the Force Modernization Planner and MI Branch Professional Development Officer, U.S. Army Military Personnel Center. Then, following 18 months as an intelligence and targeting officer for the Commander-in-Chief European Command Airborne Command Post in England, Colonel Maurice was selected as Chief of the unit's Standardization and Evaluation Section. Subsequently, he served as Chief of the G2 Exercise Division, 18 Airborne Corps. From 1987 to 1991, Colonel Maurice served consecutively as the Executive Officer and Commander of the 519th MI Battalion, Tactical Exploitation Airborne, which he successfully deployed during Operations Just Cause in Panama and Desert Storm in Iraq. In Panama, he deployed and operated the largest tactical interrogation facility in combat since Vietnam. During Desert Storm, Colonel Maurice validated the concepts for the Corps' long-range surveillance capability, which conducted cross-border operations with an attached attack and lift helicopter element. After attendance at the Naval War College and a year as the G2 7th Infantry Division, Colonel Maurice was selected to be the Chief of the Joint Intelligence Center at U.S. Central Command in 1993.
We welcome Colonel Maurice into the MI Hall of Fame with the presentation of his certificate.
Major Rene J. de Forno, U.S. Army, retired, deceased. Rene de Forno was born in France in 1921 and immigrated to the United States in 1939. He volunteered for the U.S. Army in 1943. Because of his French language skills, he was sent to the Military Intelligence Training Center at Camp Ritchie, Maryland, to become an interrogator. He was shipped to Londonderry, Northern Ireland, then quickly transferred to the British Army's Special Operations Executive in London. After intensive training to conduct sabotage and subversion missions, as well as organized guerrilla resistance, he was assigned to the Office of Strategic Services, but under the operational control of the British. After Private de Forno was chosen for a mission within the German-occupied France, he was discharged from the U.S. Army and reported to the Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Forces, where he was commissioned as a second lieutenant by Chief Commander General Dwight Eisenhower. On the night of August 8, 1944, Second Lieutenant de Forno was dropped into France, mistakenly some 20 miles from the intended site, but eventually joined his group of resistance organizers. Operating behind enemy lines for several months, he personally destroyed the bridge of Saint-Thibault on the Loire River and tricked the Germans into blowing another bridge, denying their use by German tanks to attack American soldiers. Mission completed, Second Lieutenant de Forno returned to the U.S., where he received the Silver Star for his actions in France. In April 1945, the OSS selected Second Lieutenant de Forno for an assignment in the China, Burma, India Theater. On April 31, 1945, he flew from Calcutta, India, to Kunming in the far southeast part of China. By May 16th, he was second in command of the 8-member DEER team tasked to train guerrillas in French Indochina. To hide his French roots, he went by the cover name Raymond Douglas. On July 28th, de Forno and the DEER team parachuted into the jungle camp near Hanoi to link up with the resistance group led by Ho Chi Minh and General Vo Nguyen Giap. Their mission was to train the group for guerrilla operations against the Japanese and to collect intelligence for use against the Japanese in the waning days of World War II.
We welcome Major DeForno into the MI Hall of Fame with the presentation of his certificate to his widow, Virginia.
Warrant Officer 5, Stephen T. Kiss, U.S. Army, retired, deceased. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Stephen Kiss, a native of Budapest, Hungary, fought in the 1956 Hungarian uprising against the Soviet Union as a 16-year-old. After escaping Hungary, he enlisted in the U.S. Army in November 1958 under a law allowing the recruitment of foreign nationals. As a light weapons infantryman, he served with the 3rd Armored Division in Germany from 1959 to 1962. Subsequently, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Kiss put his Hungarian and Italian language skills to work for the 525 MI Group and the 528 MI Company interrogation, providing interpreter-translator support to the Army and other federal agencies. After training and leading the interrogation prisoner of war section of the 1st MI Company, 1st Infantry Division at Fort Riley, Kansas, he deployed to Vietnam, where he led field interrogation teams during combat operations. He completed a Vietnamese language course and returned to Vietnam as senior interrogator for the 25th MI Company, 25th Infantry Division, and for the Combined Military Interrogation Center in Saigon. In 1971, he served his first of several assignments at the U.S. Army Intelligence Center and School, Fort Huachuca, where he was a senior instructor for interrogation approaches and questioning techniques. During later assignments to the schoolhouse, he revised the basic interrogator course, developed the first Department of Defense strategic debriefer and interrogation course, and had overall responsibility for intelligence combating terrorism, counter-drug analysis, human intelligence, and counterintelligence courses. Chief Warrant Officer 5 Kiss made his greatest contributions to military intelligence during his many years in Germany. In 1973, he was attached to the 511th MI Battalion as the officer in charge of the Border Residence Office in Cham, Germany.
We welcome CW5 Kiss into the MI Hall of Fame with the presentation of his certificate to his widow, Antje.
Mr. Maurice J. Sheely, Master Sergeant, U.S. Army, retired. Department of the Army Civilian, retired, deceased. Maurice J. Sheely enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1967 and served 10 years as a supply specialist, radar operator, with 2 tours in Vietnam, before serving an additional 10 years as a counterintelligence agent. He retired as a Master Sergeant in 1987. Mr. Sheely then became a Department of the Army civilian, and for the next 27 years served in various positions within the U.S. Army Foreign Counterintelligence Activity. He was first assigned as a team chief, and then Chief of the Counterespionage Section in the Würzburg, Germany Field Office, 511th Military Intelligence Battalion, 66th MI Group. Reassigned to the Special Operations Section, he remained in Würzburg conducting offensive counterintelligence operations until 1994, when the OFCO effort was consolidated in Munich as Detachment 15.
We welcome Mr. Sheely into the MI Hall of Fame with the presentation of his certificate to his widow, Kathy. Born a slave in the early 1820s, Harriet Tubman escaped in 1849 and thereafter led nearly 100 fellow slaves to freedom through her Underground Railroad activities. However, her role as a spy and a scout for the Union Army during the Civil War and her particularly notable part in the Combahee River Raid in South Carolina are not well known.
The Combahee River Raid greatly reduced Confederate supplies by destroying large amounts of Confederate property and establishing a Union blockade on the river. In addition, 200 of the freed enslaved men joined Colonel Montgomery's regiment. Due to the success of the raid, many national newspapers hailed Harriet Tubman, but her role as a Union spy and scout was quickly exposed. A Confederate report later blamed Major Emanuel for being unprepared and commended the work of Harriet Tubman by stating the following: "The enemy seems to have been well posted as to the character and capacity of our troops, and their small chance of encountering opposition, and to have been well guided by persons thoroughly acquainted with the river and country." As the Civil War continues, the important role of women will be examined further, but Harriet Tubman will always stand alone as the only woman to lead a military raid during the American Civil War.
After the war, Harriet Tubman returned to Auburn, New York, where she lived the rest of her life as a community activist, humanitarian, suffragist. She died of pneumonia March 10, 1913, and was buried with military honors at Fort Hill Cemetery in Auburn. We are honored today to make Harriet Tubman an honorary member of the MI Intelligence Corps. Please welcome to the center stage Ms. Ernestine Martin Wyatt, representing her great aunt, Harriet Tubman. She'll be joined by Major General Walters, Command Sergeant Major Robinson, and CW5 Vasily.